Hey folks, it's Patriot Nurse. Thank you for joining me today. In this quick segment, I want to discuss with you all the next phase of preparedness and how we can tailor our approach. So for those of you who have been paying attention to the news, obviously anybody who's also been to the grocery store over the past few months has noticed this too, that inflation on consumer items has gone up significantly, and food, I think it's at 3.9%, which is a pretty significant increase, especially when you compare it to food price increase averaging in the mid ones as far as inflation over the past few years. And so there are a few things I think we need to focus on with this next phase of preparedness. Looking back towards the quantitative easing, the QE ad nauseum that was adopted by certainly the Obama administration's Federal Reserve and has continued all these years forward. We're coming now to where Federal Reserve comments, particularly I think it was yesterday, the Atlanta Federal Reserve had its meeting, and in one of the pre-meeting chats, it was noted, rightly so, I would suggest, by a member of the Federal Reserve, that this quantitative easing and this monetary support ad nauseum is not going to end up well if it continues. And we're seeing this reflected in various different ways. The job market right now is doing some somersaults and some weird things, which really, when you consider the impact of free money and basically universal basic income that has been adopted as part of the pandemic relief efforts from many governments, including our own here in the United States, it's little wonder that we're seeing a lot of these upheavals that we're seeing. So I want to focus on what they are and then how we move forward from them. Obviously, we've talked about inflation with consumer items as well as food. But what we're also seeing in the market with job and employment issues, how can I put it? As someone who is self-employed, I pay an insane amount of tax. And for those of you who have your own businesses or who have ever filed as a business owner or self-employed, you know how we get raked over the coals for self-employment tax. Small businesses hire an awful lot of people. But when you consider that people in the job market right now who would otherwise, in absence of government subsidies, be forced because of economic imperatives to go out and look for jobs, now the tax dollars that are paying for them to sit at home and collect unemployment and receive federal bonuses for unemployment in many states, this money that is enabling them to stay and select out of the job market, that is money that is being collected also, that has not stopped, by the way. That money is being collected under threat of coercion from people like me, from people like you, from people who pay taxes. And in particular, small business owners. Small business owners are paying inordinate amount of taxes, disproportionately so. And now our tax dollars, which we could have used to hire other people, are actively being used to outcompete us in the market to potentially hire people. This is like the snake eating its own tail, and it's disastrous for its economic impacts in the labor market. It's funny because I look at the news, and I'm sure you guys have seen the articles too. I look at the news where the New York Times and a lot of these classic propaganda outlets are saying, oh, there's just a labor shortage. Oh, we just don't have enough people to work. Nonsense. Absolute nonsense. There are plenty of people in this country, and if you needed any evidence of this, look at the unfettered and unchecked illegal immigration that's been happening over the past several decades. You can't tell me that there's not enough people in this country. The issue is that there are not enough people in this country willing to work currently in jobs that are being offered because they make more money and easier money staying at home, continuing to collect benefits from the federal government that have been extracted under threat of coercion from the people who would hire them. So what this effectively does is it cripples the job creation opportunities for medium and small business owners. And if that be the case, even though we're in a place right now where people are looking to hire, it's weird. It's like the businesses that have been able to withstand all of these government shutdowns, now that they're barely able to tread water again, they're trying to hire people and nobody wants to work. In many cases. Now, one group that I actually do see wanting to work is young people. When I'm talking like 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olds, high school kids mostly. And I've sounded the opinions out of various high school kids from all over the country in my interactions. And this is something that I am seeing, and this is particularly encouraging, I think, for this next generation, this next cycle of voting. Because these young people who are in high school right now have been raised ultimately by the Gen Xers in most cases. And Gen Xers being what they are, they're more conservative than millennials. I don't know how it would break down as far as Gen Xers versus baby boomers. But these children who are young people now, who are, I think of young people as fighting age. If you can pick up a rifle in defense of your country, or you could have back in the revolution, like you're a young adult. That's what they are. So they are coming into the workforce now. They want to work because their schools have been shut down. And like it or not, young people need social reinforcement as part of their proper development, part of their consciousness, and a part of healthy friendship building. So when schools shut down interactions at the behest of government intervention, and I want to say this again, like, we have passed the 1-year anniversary now of the 15 days or whatever to crush the curve. So it's not as if this was legitimate in duration for sure. You know, I can understand, even though I don't agree with it, I can understand the move to temporarily close schools to get a cleaning schedule or something like that. But this nonsense of internet-based learning is totally toxic to young people's social development. So what we're seeing here are the economic impacts of young people saying, well, forget it. Mom and dad don't have money because, you know, they're underemployed or they're unemployed at this point because they've lost their job secondary to government influence. So I don't want to sit here on a screen all day. I want to go and interact with people. I want to go and do something and be productive. And so what does that mean? They go and get jobs. The jobs that are entry-level jobs. The jobs that give them an opportunity to, you know, learn and grow, but also, and more importantly, the jobs that ultimately are going to reflect how much of their time is spent creating revenue for a federal government that rakes them over the coals and pays for people to sit at home and do nothing. So the impacts of what we're going to see in this next phase of preparedness, I submit to you, are going to be multifaceted, not just in inflation and how much things cost going to the store, but we're also looking at labor issues. I see a rise in the strength of labor unions. I see a rise in the workforce participation in young people, but because I think this group of young people has seen the sheer ineptitude of government, I see that this group of young people coming up who is going to work are going to be probably much more conservative than the generation of the past 20 years. Because all they've seen in the formative years of their life is ineptitude, 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 ineptitude. Now, if their brains have been shielded from the bilge coming out of the mainstream, lamestream media, all the much more conservative would they end up being and voting, I would submit to you. The other thing that we're going to see also is disruption in supply line and disruption in logistical fulfillment, secondary to, again, issues with staffing. If people are being paid and incentivized to sit home and not work, then nothing is going to flow. Productivity is not going to be there. But what we are going to see, I believe, is an increase in tension. An increase in tension pan-systemically, an increase in tension in economic issues, in political issues, but also between peoples and between generations. All of this is setting up, I think, for more choppy waters here in the United States, but more so at this point, I think we have our hands full from a geopolitical standpoint as well. And I'm probably going to make another video about the things going on in the Middle East, but suffice it to say that the Biden administration is not perceived widely as being strong, the Biden, particularly in the Middle East. But they also are comprised primarily of aging baby boomer establishment bureaucrats who have a 30-year-old outlook on the role of the United States and its hegemony and perpetuating its hegemony into the future, mainly to pad their own bank accounts and cushy retirement plans. But we're going to see that be fought back against and checked, I think, mainly because as this younger generation has seen serial ineptitude, they've also seen how this serial ineptitude is being financed by money being taken out of their paychecks. And the more that I see young people going out there and taking initiative to do things themselves, I think we're also going to see that their world's going to open up and they're going to realize, wait a minute, why am I paying for all of these wars to expand empires overseas? Why am I paying for all of these people to sit at home and work while I go outside and earn my keep? Why am I paying for all of these programs which ultimately are undercutting my ability to have a good quality existence? And when you look at the gripes of the millennials, which are this generation over the younger group that's coming up, the millennials are the first ones to see overall a drop in their household net worth compared to the generation before them. And that's for many reasons. But this is setting up to be very, very tempestuous waters over the next few years. And I've spoken about it before, friends, but the medical industrial complex is now primarily, I would submit to you, staffed by individuals who are politicians first, who happen to wear the garb of healthcare, meaning white coats. And when I see in my own life the degradation of ethics, the degradation of morality, and the subsidization of wickedness en masse that has overtaken the healthcare industry, it makes me sick. And all the more determined to not elect into their services if I can help it. And I'm saying this as a nurse, right? It has changed so much since I got in all those years ago. And it makes me sick to see how it is being used to collect data on people, to create in-groups and out-groups, to politicize things, and to ultimately weaponize healthcare. That is not going to change. I submit to you, it's only going to get worse. So owning your healthcare and owning your ability to care for your family is going to become that much more important in the days to come. I hope it was helpful for y'all today. If you did enjoy the video, I hope you'll subscribe to me here on YouTube, Patriot Nurse. You can also support me on Patreon, subscribe to our cryptocurrency, and PayPal. I have links down below. If you want to own your own healthcare, if you want to get trained, if you want to be more self-sufficient in your ability to care for your family outside of the grid, take my class. You can train with me in person or online. If you want to train online, it's 4 hours, it's $129. You can find that at ThePatriotNurseAcademy.com. I also have 2 and 4 day classes coming up all over the country. You can check out my full schedule at ThePatriotNurse.com. I hope it was helpful for y'all. Have a wonderful weekend. For now, it's Patriot Nurse signing off, and I'll see y'all later. Bye.